It's time for Who Watch, Time and Relative Blackness in Space.
Black girls out of the box.
Hi everyone, it's Bayana and Robin coming to you live from the Time Vortex. Connie is off on a town called Christmas, but she should be back next week.
Today, we're discussing episode 9 of Doctor Who, season 11, It Takes You Away. In this episode, the Doctor makes a new friend, Yaz is a boss, and Ryan is a babysitter.
Yeah, so this episode I think it's because last week's was so, lighthearted. You know what I mean? Like, that this one, I was like, shit, it starts off, heavy, or at least, they're very clearly trying to scare you, or at least they're trying to build some suspense. So
no, they're trying to scare you, and I don't appreciate it.
They're trying to scare you, so it was hard to I felt like I was having whiplash, even though it's been a week since, and I knew this episode was going to be tonally different than the last one. It was still oh shit, stuff is going down. But I appreciated that it was still funny, because I feel like the opening sequence, it was interesting to me because the music was really creepy and shit, something's coming, but their conversation was just a regular ass conversation, and the Doctor's over here eating leaves and talking about the Woolly Rebellion, and you know what I mean? It was an interesting, the direction on that and the editing for that I liked a lot, because you as the audience is really in suspense and shit, something's about to go on, but everyone else is acting as if it's just a regular ass day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I also think it has something to do with the setting. I was thinking about this. There's been a lot of, movies and more TV shows, I think, in which, you get those kind of, I'm thinking, Broadchurch and not Happy Valley. There's another one, though, I think The Bridge or something like that. And it's, kind of set in these, beautiful, picturesque, landscapes, but it's also very still and quiet. Mm-hmm. So it's, yes, it's beautiful and it's picturesque and you see hills and rivers and, beaches or whatever, but it's so still that it's creepy.
Yeah.
And I think that setting right away kind of added to that, because, they're in the fjords of Norway. So, that, immediately I started thinking about, the murder mystery mini-series of things that you can find on Netflix. But then, yeah, she's talking about, the Woolly Rebellion and stuff. But I also felt like they were immediately this is a scary one, and you know how I feel about scary shit, so yeah. I was immediately not amused.
But again, I just want to point out that it was a scary one, but we could still see everything, even when it was dark.
Yes.
Even when it was supposed to be dark, and we knew the part that's a part of the plot, and we could still see what was happening.
Yes.
So I appreciate.
And when we
that.
couldn't see, it made sense why we couldn't see.
And it was on purpose. It wasn't. Or I mean, I guess before it was on purpose too, but
But it wasn't to convey some tone. It was literally because this is the setting calls for it. We're in a cave.
Right.
It should be dark. Mm-hmm. We're not walking down a hallway or whatever.
That actually has light, but for some reason, it's all blue and shit. Anyway, so we're introduced to Hannah, who is this young girl who is blind. She's played by Ellie Walwork, who is the first blind actor on Doctor Who, which is cool. The show
let Doctor Who tell you it's amazing, and they might be up for a Nobel Prize.
Yeah, it's the thing that obviously everyone should do that and should cast disabled actors to play disabled characters, but they invented it. They love to pat themselves on the back for doing shit 55 years after the fact. And I understand a lot of this discourse is much more recent than when they started, but also not so much that they couldn't have been doing this for New Who. So whatever.
Right, because New Who started in 2005.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're still getting the first
The season
people
is
of color to write in,
the season is a season of first, and it's like, yo, all at the same time, y'all couldn't have done this shit before.
You, like, yikes. The fact that, like, in 2005, a show based in Britain didn't have any writers of color is a problem. Like,
and the fact that was the case for 10 seasons.
For 10 seasons, right. Like, sorry, Cardiff is a small town or whatever, but, like, the BBC is based in London. London is a major metropolitan area. London is diverse. As the show got more popular, it had a global reach. They could have gotten they got Neil Gaiman to write an episode. Mm-hmm. They could get anyone to write an episode. Mm-hmm. So it's not like resources were, you know what I mean? Like, an issue. But yes, back to...
I mean, I just want to say, and I, like, put this in our Slack, like, at the very least, they are, patting themselves on the back and feeling themselves for representation and, like, adequate representation, as opposed to sentient Sandmen and Statue of Liberty angels. So, it's progress, baby steps.
Yes. Also, I want to say, like, we should be celebrating this.
Absolutely.
But what we should be celebrating that, like, Ellie Warwick was amazing. Mm-hmm. Like, we should be celebrating the fact that she got this opportunity and made the fucking most of it. You know what I mean? The same with Mallory Blackman and Vinay Patel. Like, they got their opportunity. Like, we're not celebrating the fact that they finally got an opportunity, because that's bullshit. Mm-hmm. But that when they did, like, they knocked it out of the park. And also that we should be happy, again, like, if you're going to pat yourselves on the back, like you were saying, at least it's not something same. And, like, these episodes and this season has been, like, if it's going to be the season of first and wokeness and, whatever else they're saying in the BBC offices, like, it's also a really good season.
Right.
So,
like, we say all of this just because obviously we want Doctor Who to be better, but, like, they're doing a pretty good job so far. So, yeah, so Hannah is this young girl who's been left in this house that's, like, fortified in the middle of the woods, and there's, like, no one else around. She thinks that her dad was taken away by a monster, and so when the Doctor and them kind of show up, she hides, and then they're kind of like, what's going on? Like, explain, trying to figure out how they can help her find her father. She's a very, like, I don't know if independent is the right word.
So she's definitely uneasy and scared and, like, wants her father, which, like, she should. But she also is, like, not panicking, I guess. Mm-hmm. And is like, my dad said this is how it's going to go. I'm going to do what he, says to do until he gets back. Yeah.
And then once the Doctor and co show up and they're like, oh, they find the portal and they're like, we're going through. She's like, well, then I should, then she's like, I want to go too. I want to make sure that my dad is cool.
Yeah.
And so just, like, having that, I can't think of the word.
I think it's, like, self-confidence, I think is the word.
Yeah, self-confidence, but
self-assuredness.
It's on the tip of my tongue. The
resourceful,
go get itness. I don't. It's not a word.
Resourcefulness.
No, but not resourceful. Like, that feels too passive. I don't know. She's like, I'm about to go. We're doing this, and, like, she's
to handle her businessness.
Yeah, yes, thank you. That. So I think that is important, and I think that they all kind of underestimate her and try to baby her. I think partially because she's young, but also because she's blind. And so,
yeah.
But, like, the way that they're treating her doesn't match, like, who she actually is and how,
She showed herself, like, able to, like, actually deal and to not be treated with kid gloves, I guess. Mm-hmm.
So the Doctor is kind of, I like how, I just like, again, I was saying earlier, like, how this episode opens, because the Doctor is just trying to, like, figure things out and where they are. It's always
by eating dirt
and, like, leaves and shit. And, like, I will say that it's always weird to me when they, and I know it's probably just because the Doctor likes to show off, but to me, it's always like they get out the TARDIS and, like, where are we? When are we? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure the TARDIS could tell you. Like, I'm pretty sure it says before we step outside. Like, you could just check. But it's been...
I mean, sometimes it gets it wrong, but that's usually, like, not the TARDIS's fault.
Exactly. So it's just always funny to me that they, like, hop out and then are like, okay, what's going on? And it's like, you could have seen
just
before.
Just ask
There are
her.
Screens and stuff that can tell you this, and I'm sure it's, like, flashing.
Well, are there screens on the new TARDIS?
Maybe not. But there's a way to figure it out, I'm sure.
Oh, totally.
Like...
There's the what's him face it.
Mm-hmm. That
is a scientific word.
hourglass?
Turn it again, and then sand. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I like what's him face it better.
I think I like it better too.
Yeah, but yeah. So I like the Doctor, how she's very much like, and this is a thing that I've noticed throughout the season. But then I feel like this episode it was just like more on display. And I mean, I don't know if that's totally true. I'd have to rewatch the season or whatever. But like her coming out, and she's just very physical, which has been happening. Where she's like, I'm picking up dirt, I'm eating that, I'm looking at this, I'm scanning the sheep just in case we're in the wrong century and they're about to square up on us. So but then like when they're in the room and she like sticks her face in the mirror, it's very similar to when she dives into the tub and sees the spider in Arachnids in the UK, where she's just like, ooh, let me go peek, and then comes back and is like, wow, yep, that's terrifying, but like cool, we're gonna figure it out. But she's very much like, I think in a way that the other doctors like of New Who haven't been, like she's very much like, I'm gonna jump into the mess to see what's going on and then jump out, whereas like other doctors tend to just be like asking what's going on, or they'll wait to jump in until they figured some things out,
or they'll jump in and not have a plan. Like
right,
even with her, like she put her whole face in there, but she made sure that she could like lift herself back out of the tub.
Exactly.
She like went all the way in, but you could see her holding onto the inside of that mirror portal so that she could get herself back out.
Exactly.
And, like,
so she's just like she's dipping her toe in. So it's like it's a way for her to like get the information without jumping in, either without a plan or thinking that she has a plan before she jumps in. Like it's very physical, and she also she talks out loud, and you can like hear her thinking out loud. She thinks out loud, and so in doing that, it helps her be more transparent towards her, like with her companions, because she's like making the connections out loud and they can kind of follow her for the most part. Sometimes they can't because she'll just have never mentioned things like the solar track before, and she's like, but you have to know what that is, and they're like, also, can we just, even with, well, I can't see, and by the time I got to watch this episode, like my glasses subtitles weren't helping me, but she was saying solar tract and I couldn't understand what that word was. Yeah.
And not in the funny way that Yaz couldn't understand it. I was like, what is she saying? Yeah. I don't. And then everyone was like, type on Twitter was like, solar tract. And I was like, so everyone else heard that or saw, maybe they saw the captions and that's how they figured out how to spell it correctly and whatever. But I was lost. Yeah, I mean, I definitely did not hear it the first time. And I had to rewind. So, I mean, there's that. But yeah, no, so like, I think that just even the way that she found out about the solar track, like all of it was very much just like when she realized that it was a solar track, she was very much like, okay, why is it doing this? Oh wait, but they're doing it because of this. And then she's just very much like this linear kind of train of thought that even though we don't know the information, we totally buy. And like, obviously, I mean, it's the Doctor, so we buy almost anything that she says, but even though you don't know half of what she's talking about, you can still follow how she's like getting to that point, so that when she does come to the conclusion that it's a solar tract, we're all like, cool, that's what it is. Yeah. Though I must say, I was literally like, this is some crazy, like, magical science, because that doesn't make sense. I mean, it was, but I understood it. I understood it, right. When she explained it out, I was like, yeah, okay, I understand the writer's internal logic of what this thing is, but I was like, y'all are. But I will also say that it made me. I thought a lot about Rise of the Cybermen. That's what that episode's called. Like the last two good episodes of season 2. I thought about that in the way that like the Doctor explained the like alternate dimensions and the way that they're kind of parallel and there's like space in the middle, and that's where the Daleks and the Cybermen were, or maybe just the Daleks. One of them was trapped in the middle. And I think that's where the finale, whatever that was, came together because they were in the middle. It was a Dalek. It was like the Dalek progenitor thingy. So I liked that we got to see that. I don't know if they totally were thinking
that, but it felt consistent with that lore from, like, all the way back in season 2. We just didn't get to see the between, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it felt like, so it felt like a continuation of that, but also something new, because we didn't know about Soul Tracks, and they're not a part of the universe, but they're still, like, parallel it's still a dimension in a way.
Yeah, because that was really what I was seeing was, like, before the Soul Track thing, I was like, oh, we're in a parallel universe, calling back to Time of the Cybermen or whatever that one is. Then the Solo Track brought into it, and it was like, oh, but this whole universe is sentient, which then reminded me of 42 and the, like...
Oh, the sun thing?
If you go back to our skip list episodes, and I think I wrote about it, I don't like when a planet has a soul or a universe, like... I'll get down with, like, plants have a soul, or there's a spirit of nature of this one part of a planet. But, like, with the whole universe has the same consciousness, and I'm just like...
Okay, we should move on.
We should move on, but I don't fuck
She doesn't like
with
that.
Sentient, larger than...
I get that.
And I'll give you an asteroid.
Yeah.
A star, you're pushing it.
The whole universe, you weren't fucking with it. Like,
the whole universe, fuck that shit.
I liked the Soul Attract as, like, a concept. I felt like the way that it manifests. Well, I mean, the end, I felt like somebody was on something when they wrote the end of it. So, but we'll get there.
I love that.
I mean, I did not like it, but I was definitely like, yo, that's not where I saw this episode going at all. So it wasn't like I didn't like it. I was just very much like, whoa. Yes, I felt like this episode we see, I mean, and we've seen it before, but, like, she's very much the Doctor's partner, right? Like, she's the first one to, when the Doctor's like, okay, we're going through, I'm going through the mirror, and Yaz is like, me too. And then Ryan and Graham say they're going as well, but she's very much just like, she's ready, right? Like, she's bringing her training to the forefront. She's very much like, when the Doctor can't think of something, she's kind of a good sounding board, even though she doesn't have as much knowledge as the Doctor in terms of, like, universe and weird shit. Like, she at the very least is coming up with options, and whenever the Doctor, like, honestly, wherever the Doctor is going, Yaz is not far behind. Like, Ryan and Graham might be off doing other things, or maybe cool to split up. And I mean, even when, Yaz splits up with Ryan often as well, but, like, often when the Doctor's like, okay, I'm going here, she's like, cool.
Especially when there's a mystery. And that's the thing that I, like, really love about Yaz is, like, she is a police officer. Definitely what we saw in, like, the premiere episode, like, is about that, like, I'm about to be the youngest detective ever type of, she is, especially when there's a mystery or something that she has questions about, she's going to be there to, like, find answers to her questions.
Right. So, and I appreciate that. And I think that, we also get her, she's very brief interactions with Hannah, but the characterization is consistent again in the way that she's, like, trying to make sure she's okay. She's very much trying to listen to what Hannah is saying before coming to her own conclusions.
And calling on her training so that even if she doesn't, because I kind of, when she's talking to Ryan about how, like, when Ryan mentions that she's good with kids, like, she's not saying that she totally believes Hannah or Hannah, but she knows how to, like, make her feel heard and like, calm her, make sure that she doesn't panic and calm her down. And she knows that because she was trained to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So I just, I said in the last episode, like, Graham has grown on me for sure, but I think that I still have the same issues with his character that I did in the beginning. It's just that because his characterization has been cool, it's not as, it doesn't make me angry. And so this episode, I think, like, I started off and I was like, oh, Graham out here carrying sandwiches and, like, I
really enjoyed that part. He was like, my blood sugar gets low, and I was like, you're such an old man,
like,
Graham.
Also, like, same, right? Because they never stop to eat. They be just hopping off the TARDIS like, ooh, where to next? And I'm like, y'all ain't gonna just get a bite to eat? Like, no? And he's like, you know what?
What is the kitchen like in the TARDIS? Because
he's like, I'm not finna get caught up. The last time, I had y'all stop at the grocery store, I don't know why you didn't think I was going to be getting stuff I could make on the go. I love that.
Because we leave the TARDIS and then y'all act like food don't exist. Right. Or,
And Graham like, because Ryan was really like, so you just be carrying sandwiches around? He's like, well, I mean, what else you gonna do? Like, I gotta eat.
I don't trust y'all
I'm
to
an
make
old
sure that
man,
I'm
like,
fed.
Exactly. So I felt that. And so they get through the anti-zone and are in the solar tract. And, well, like, first we get Hannah's dad, who has, plot twist, like, ditched Hannah for all intents and purposes because his wife is in the anti-zone. And, like, it's funny because I felt like Yaz and Graham, where they're kind of like realizing that he's just been out here, and they're just like, word, bro? Like, just really?
Like, your kid is, really? You left your blind kid, like,
and like alive and
stuck
like
in a house.
right, and like living child to then just be out here like, oh, but my wife. I'm like, yeah, but what about your kid? And like, your wife should be on some go back to your kid.
Right, and we learned from Hannah early on that, like, they had moved out there. So it's not like she got friends.
Right.
Or, you know what I mean? They moved to the middle of nowhere. And then you just ghosted her.
Right.
Like,
and it's just like,
really,
oh, there's
bro?
a monster outside, which then there is no monster. Ryan finds out it's just a speaker with a recording. So, like, did all this shit to, like, keep her safe or whatever, but, like, not actually taking care of her. And, like, honestly, like...
Yeah.
Part of me wants to be sympathetic because, you know, grief is a real thing. And I think that, like, I think that they do kind of a good job of showing us Eric, where he's, like, already, like, he's so far gone or whatever, and then showing Graham with the soul attract Grace. So you can kind of see how that
how he can get caught up.
Right, how you can get caught up. And I also think that, like, there's, like, a parallel, right? Because Eric has just left his daughter to fend for herself, and then the mom is like, oh yeah, I'm me, whatever, but like doesn't ever say anything like, hey, you just left our daughter to fend for herself, why don't you like take your ass back into the regular world? So that's the like,
I don't know why I'm here, but I know that Hannah is not here, so go.
And that's the tale that like clearly this is not right. And so the same thing happens when Grace is like, oh, Ryan will be fine, like it's cool. And Yaz is like, no. And then Graham eventually gets to, no. You know what I mean? Like, kind of realizing. But it takes Graham a little bit longer because, like, he's in love with Grace.
Because he wants it to be right.
Right.
And I think that it was, like, that part, I'm still mad about it.
I mean, so I think that I was feeling a little irritated on two fronts where, like, for one, like, again, as always, it should have been Grace instead of Graham, just generally. And then two, this, and we've talked about this and we've kind of, like, guessed that this was kind of what was going to happen, is that Grace's death has far more bearing on Graham in his storyline than it does on Ryan. Like, Ryan often will, like, mention his gran or his nan or whatever, but, like, doesn't have moments where he is struggling with that grief. It's always very much like, hey, Graham, how are you doing? I know you're struggling.
Or like, I missed her too.
Right.
Like,
where it's like, but didn't you grew up with her, right? Like, you haven't, like, not to say that like Graham's relationship with Grace was not important and wasn't like deep and they didn't have a strong connection, but they only knew each other for like maybe 4 or 5 years, right? Like, they were married for 3 years. That's like that was Ryan's whole, like, she raised him, and I feel like they don't, like, the show does not put as much weight on the fact that this is the person who he grew up with.
His mother,
like,
basically,
his mom
lost his
died,
mom. Yeah.
And so then, like, Grace stepped in because his dad, and we hear about his dad often, and, like, his issues with his dad, and that comes up, but then we don't get the Grace part, and so it's frustrating to me because I'm sitting here like, okay, so Ryan's not going to see Soul Attract Grace, and we're not going to deal with him maybe wanting to stay as well. And it feels like they don't want to reckon with the fact that they took this person away from 2 people and not just 1. Yeah. And if that was the case, then they shouldn't have given Ryan a grandmother, you know what I mean, to die. If they weren't going to reckon with both sides of that, it just seems.
Or they shouldn't have made her his sole provider.
Right. Because they only.
Not to say that, like, losing a grandmother, even if she's, kind of just your grandmother, is not traumatic and terrible and, like, very hard to deal with, and still comes up in, like,
right
ways.
Now. Yeah. No, for real.
In moments when you're, like, thinking that you're fine, and then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, my grandmother's gone. But it is a bit easier to kind of see that arc, or see that grief, compartmentalize that grief when you have your mother and your father and your family.
Yeah,
you know
you
what I
have
mean?
other
Like it's,
people
you don't
who
feel
are around. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't feel kind of orphaned in the way that I assume Ryan would have felt.
Right, because he doesn't have siblings. He doesn't have his parents. And we don't hear about any, like, aunts or uncles, right? Whereas, like, Yaz, we know, has, like, people. And so for Graham to... or not for Graham, sorry. For Ryan to then not get that space, really, past, like, the first episode to really grieve, just feels wrong.
I also will say that I kind of was thinking... and was thinking about it more today, as I'm, like, letting this episode marinate, that I think it would have been really interesting because, you know, we saw... the doctor's explanation of, like, the solo track, like, they're incompatible, and so they can't have, like, she was saying, like, you might have been able to handle having Eric here, but, like, now there's 5 of us. Like, having that moment where solo track Grace has Graham and Ryan and obviously cannot have both of them, and then, like, having that be a choice would be gut-wrenching and terrible, but, like, it would still be a moment where they equally have to deal with their grief, and they equally have to, like, lean on each other to move on.
Right. I think even showing how they grieve differently, because I do think that, like, having the end where Ryan's kind of like, yeah, I miss her too, is important, because there's, you know, it's totally possible that he's not showing it in the same way that Graham does, but I think that needs to be acknowledged more and shown more, and not so much just, like, Ryan's always talking about his dad and that's it, you know, because, like, I think that they're... especially just because this is the most recent loss for him, it just feels like it should be a little bit more to the forefront. Yeah. And not to say that he shouldn't have feelings about his father, because I think that the way that they bring...
and because he's angry about his dad.
Right. I think that, like, the way that's brought up is done well, but we just are missing the Grace part of it, and so it's frustrating, and it makes me a little bit resentful to then watch Graham go through this whole thing, and I'm just like, whatever, dude. Like, but it's partially because they're not having it on equal footing, right? And so I just kind of wish that would be a thing. I think that the, like, Graham and Grace, that storyline was, like, done well on its own. It just needed it. Yeah, it just needs to be given equal weight.
It doesn't, and we talked about this after the first episode. It can't, they set it up so it cannot live on its own. Right. So they wrote themselves into a hole there. The other thing about Graham having to deal with that grief and kind of showing, like you were saying, like, we see Eric and then it makes it, like, sets up, like, how difficult it can be to get over or let someone go. So then when Graham sees Grace, it, like, you're already kind of in that headspace. I also think it was important to see Graham actually let not Grace go, and then seeing, did Graham go first or did Eric go first? I think Graham went first, right?
Yeah, Eric was the last
and then
to
seeing,
go.
Yeah, and then, like, seeing Eric be like, this stranger can do it. I can.
Well, it wasn't even that. It was that the solo track rejected him. And then he was like, oh, that's not you.
Right, but giving him that, like, he doesn't do it, right? But, like, giving him that, like, blueprint. It's like, this is how this happens. Like, this is how you let go. This is someone who's obviously not there. And then seeing him reject it was kind of... I think it was great because it balanced, like, Hannah... We learn about Eric, and we learn about, like, Hannah understands and knows that he is not okay. And he's not handling her mother's death as well as... or in the way that she needs him to be a good father. And then when her own mother rejects her, you would think that would snap him out of it. But it kind of reminded me a lot of, like, it didn't remind me, it to me felt like they were saying, like, you can be kind of comatose in your grief. Like, you can really not, like, if you let it go so far without, like, you can let it overwhelm you, and it's harder and harder to get back.
Right. Totally. Yeah.
But also, like, fuck it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So then we also get a few more, like, other than the soul track, we also get flesh moths, which are gross.
Not a fan.
No, not at all. Well, you know, would not recommend.
Ribbons. Was also not a fan.
No, ribbons. This was so weird to me. Like, it was funny because at first I was like, hold up, is this the big bad? I was like, I was like, is this what we're doing? Okay. But then, like, Ribbons was just, he tried it. He was like,
like the come up man. Like he was like, you know, I got fake Gucci's.
Right.
What you want? Like
he's just out here with the counterfeit goods. He's like, I want your tubular.
He was hustling. He was a hustler,
but no.
No, thank you.
And then like for someone who like lived in the anti-zone for as long as he did, the fact that he got by the flesh moths for moving was like wild to me. It was just like, that wasn't smart, and you knew that. But like, okay, whatever, bro.
But he was trying to get on his hustle. He was trying to make the come up.
But I just felt like, you know, self-preservation is probably important to the hustle. And so then, in addition to that, the solar tract becomes a frog with Grace's voice.
Loved it.
It was
I literally was like, we're seriously doing Puff the Magic Dragon right now. I'm
weird.
I don't know when this turned into.
I didn't not like it, but I can't decide if I liked it. If that makes sense.
I don't think you were supposed to like it.
I was just very much like, what? Like, I don't know. I just felt like, and I think part of it was that, like, it could have taken any form. Like, it literally could have just been Grace. And it would have been fine.
But I also feel like it wasn't a good frog.
No.
Like,
it was weird.
It wasn't convincing or any, like, they could have done, or made it like a complete cartoonish frog.
Or something.
Like, they didn't commit either way.
It was strange. But, like, I didn't hate it. I just wasn't sure if I liked it.
Yeah, I was literally like, so there are these, like, moments, especially in, like, 60s, like, cartoons and, like, a lot of the, like, older, like, golden age of Hollywood and musicals. Like, Gene Kelly did this shit all the time, by the way. Gene Kelly. You'd be watching a musical starring Gene Kelly, and it would be one thing. Singing in the Rain. They're trying to make a movie picture. They're dancing and singing on set. They're making a talkie for the first time. He's a movie star, and there's an ingenue. And then you look up, and you're in the middle of a 20-minute ballet. And you're like, when did I get here?
Right.
Where did this come from? And then all of a sudden you're back in the movie, and you're like, did I hallucinate that whole thing? That's
definitely how I felt, because I was like, I was just like, what? Like, I saw the frog on the chair, and I was just like, what is...
But also, like, it went stark white.
And what was really funny to me, too, was that, like, they set it up so... Like, if they had set up that Grace liked frogs and shit in, like, the first episode, I might have been a little bit more here for it, but it's like they brought it up, or even brought up Graham's necklace earlier. Like, it just felt like they had that little moment so that they could do the frog at the end, and I was just like, what the fuck,
totally.
bro? I was just so, like... I don't know. I think for me it was one of those like quintessential, like I feel like it was a Doctor Who moment. Like there are certain things that you just think about in Doctor Who where you're like, what the fuck was that? But like you don't hate. You're just like, okay, whatever. It's like this weird Doctor Who thing, but it's also just strange. And I'm just,
like it wasn't necessary. But
it was still like trying to figure out what was happening. But like,
we'll rock with it.
Okay, I guess. Like, I'm not gonna say no. I'm just gonna say why.
It was a choice.
It was. That's what it was. It was very much a choice.
I kind of loved it,
man,
because it was a choice. Because it was so. It was so weird.
It was so weird. I was really just like, like, okay. Also, it's like the last 10 minutes of the episode, so it's like, I'm already here. Like, I can't now. I can't stop.
Right, because it's like, I can't be like, okay, I'm out. Like,
it's too late.
I've made it this far.
Like, at this point, it's just, I have to see it through. But, like, man, they were really relying on us to have been in with them for some time. Mm-hmm. And we have been. So, I mean, it's not like it was a dumb choice. It was just a strange one.
It was,
But man, Ryan rants and raves. I think that it was interesting to see Ryan bring his own baggage into the situation from jump. Where he like immediately is like, your dad ditched you. I don't believe you talking about these monsters. Like, whatever, bro. And so like,
call a thing
and so
a thing.
And so Yaz has to kind of like reel him in. She's like, dude, chill out. Like, this is a kid. And then also it kind of creates tension between him and Hannah. And I like that they kind of have this like point of contention, and they're very much not like homies off top, even though he is trying to help her.
We were, when I was going back through some of the conversations in the Slack and on social media, people are like, why does Hannah hate Ryan so much? I was like, when she met him, he was like, your dad left you.
He was just like, are you sure?
I was like, of course she doesn't rock with him.
And it totally made sense why like Ryan would jump to that conclusion. So I think that probably for us as the audience are very much like,
we gave him we gave him the benefit of the doubt more, but like she doesn't know him and doesn't know his story. And he's just like, no, your dad left.
And you're lying and
why
like
are we pretending?
Whatever. And Yaz has to kind of be like, dude, let's not just jump to that. Especially given that like
Ryan,
they've all, been seeing weird ass shit, and so he's just like, nah, this isn't weird. This is just like regular deadbeat fathers.
This is like literally Ryan was like, Santa doesn't exist. Get over it. Just like killed her innocence on his own stuff.
But then he was also right, technically. So like,
he was right.
Awkward.
That's not wrong.
No, he was definitely not wrong.
At least he didn't like come back and say, I told you.
Yeah. He was just like, and by that point they were cool. So like, I appreciated that, Hannah's like, I want to go save my father. And Ryan's not going to let me. So let me like do what I got to do. And even though she like knocked him out and just went into the anti-zone on her own, when he found her, he wasn't like, why would you do that? Oh my gosh. He was like, nah, I'm going to protect you from these moths that are coming for it. You know what I mean? Like, he's very much like,
he's like, you're determined. So I'm not going to like, I tried to stop you and now I'm going to help you.
Right. And I think that he also understands where that comes from as well. Like, I think that he empathizes with that train of thought. And instead of being like, dude, you hella have me like bleeding on my forehead, he's just like, all right, let's figure out like how to find your pops. And so I think that the fact that he reacts in that way is what then makes their relationship blossom to the point where at the end she gives him a hug specifically, and in part because he doesn't like hold that against her.
Yeah.
I do also want to point out the scream when he sees the dead chickens.
So good.
And Yaz is like, boy, what did you do?
What is wrong with you?
And he's like, is that natural? Like, are you supposed to just walk into rooms and it's just chickens lined up?
He was
dead?
like, this is not normal.
He's like, I
love how he was also to the doctor like, I solved it. They're dead chickens.
Right.
I found the weird thing. Now we know what we're supposed to be investigating.
Exactly.
We're investigating these dead-ass chickens just hanging out here.
Exactly. And everybody else is like, no, it's not it. That's not the one.
I don't think that's it.
It's not it. But like, yeah.
He's like me. He's like, chickens are found in the supermarket and that's it.
That's it. We don't have them hanging upside down in no shed with bear traps. No. He was like, it's a bear trap. This is it. We cracked the code. Cracked the case. Let's go home. Let's go somewhere else. Yeah, I mean, I think that, and then he volunteers to go through the mirror, but only after Yaz does. And then the doctor kind of leaves him with Hannah, and he's kind of like, but why though? And I think part of that is because he knows that Yaz is better with kids than he is. But I think the doctor knew that too, and it feels like the doctor is very much like channeling the TARDIS in terms of like having them go where they need to and not necessarily where they want to.
Yeah.
Also, I think she just wanted to hang out with Yaz more because like that's her girl.
Because they go together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked though that like he wasn't like the doctor was like, I'm going in here, and he was not like, yeah, me too. Like that was
Right.
Like Yaz started that off, and then he was like, okay, well, I guess this is what we're doing.
Yeah,
Yaz
so he's
going,
like, cool,
then I'm
whatever.
going. Like you're going in, Yaz is going, and then I guess. But like I did appreciate that like hesitance of, I mean,
like, okay, sure.
I feel like we could just leave this mirror here.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And then at the end, they do the thing. But it's not, like, so he calls him Granddad.
Yeah.
I kind of rolled my eyes, but it wasn't as bad as I expected it to be. Because I didn't...
Well, the thing I really liked about it, because we knew it was going to happen.
And I saw it coming. When they were standing out there talking, I was like... And then when he kind of looks at him, I was like, oh, it's about to happen.
Yeah.
It's happening now.
But I think because we had already, like, resigned ourselves to the fact that it was going to happen, it was just a matter of when it was going to happen, that when it finally happened, I did, a little bit. But I was like, I liked that it was about... because we just saw Ryan, like, being comforting to Hannah and, like, being not just a source of comfort, but as like a kind of a source of strength as well, like someone that she could rely on. And I really felt like he was doing the same thing for Graham. Like, it was like, that was for Graham. That was to help him.
Right.
That had no real, like, it wasn't like for Ryan. Ryan doesn't come to this, like, in Ryan's head, he's still calling the dude Graham.
Right. And I don't think by next episode he's going to be, like, running around talking about granddad. Like, I think he's just like, yo, like,
you needed this.
Good for you.
And I can give this to you.
But I think the other thing, too, is
then,
that,
let's move on and let's not make a big deal about it. And I'm going to crack a joke about your age.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, too, is that, like, he heard from Yaz what happened. And so knows that Graham came back for him. And, like, partially came back for, like, the real Grace. You know what I mean? And, like, doing what, like, actual Grace would want him to do. But also it's for Ryan. And so I think that him kind of, like, understanding that and not necessarily feeling like Graham is his granddad, because, again, they've only known each other, like, 3 years. That's doing a lot. But, like, feeling okay with at least joking, you know what I mean, about it, or at least, like, giving it to him as comfort, but not feeling like he really, like, not feeling like he personally thinks of Graham as that.
And I think he thinks of Graham as family now, but in the same way that he thinks of Yaz and the doctor as family.
Right.
Like, it's a chosen family, but it's not, like, you're still not my granddad, you know? Like, but I can give that to you.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. Quotes.
And he's adorable.
He's the cutest. Always.
Before we move on to quotes, he's still adorable.
I feel like we need to say that every time. He's the best.
I felt like we didn't mention it.
We didn't, and that was a failing on our part.
Yes. We can't have a full episode of TARDIS without just stating the fact.
Exactly.
Yeah, quotes from the TARDIS.
We'd know if we were vampires, right? I just appreciate the like, these are hard-hitting questions, you know?
Yeah.
This is important.
Check off all the things, like, we were there, they were not there. Okay. I wasn't lured. It's not like I gave out credit card details.
Which is funny to me because, like, I mean, not funny, but, like, often people who...
old people?
Yeah, old people are, like, targeted for that kind of stuff. So the fact that he's like, come on, I wasn't doing math. It just was funny to me.
I liked it was a subtle age joke, but not a dig at his age.
Right.
Really? I don't know. It was a lighthearted, well-meaning dig at his age.
Yes. Eric, you got mirror married. She's like the doctor was so appalled. She's like, you know this isn't a real place. I've only been here 2 seconds and I know it's not real. Like, what's wrong with you?
Or just, like, I think she was like, you had to get a rebound in the mirror place.
Right.
Like,
but also, like, your daughter.
You couldn't just go to a bar.
Like, yo.
Like, right. Because I think that's what she was like, you couldn't just go. Because that's before she knew it was
it was before she knew it was his wife.
So you couldn't just take your ass to a bar and, like, find someone there. Your rebound had to be in this mirror.
Exactly. That's crazy.
I've told you about the solo track before. Literally never heard the word before. That entire scene with her and Yaz.
Yeah.
They go together now.
Yeah, I really do love
RSS Thasman.
Oh, gosh.
I'm on 2 ships at the same time, and I don't know how that works, but it works.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I like, and I think part of it, too, is that we, like, I don't know. I like having girls be friends.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like often when the doctor has been friends with, or, like, her, you know, his companion is often a young woman, and, like, there's always this weird, or there has been in the past, just, like, weird, like, sexual tension that just feels off and, like, it shouldn't be there. And you know, I mean, the doctor spent so much time insulting Clara in his last, like, iteration. And, like, I don't know, it was always just strange, like, not bad, but just always felt like it was the same kind of relationship. And in this case, she's very much just like, you're great, I'm great, let's just, like, be great together.
Be great together,
woo-hoo. Yeah. So I appreciate that, and it's funny, and it's entertaining. You had a grand? I had 7, but Granny 5 was my favorite. And then Granny 5 also thought that Granny 2 was a Zygon, so it seemed like there was some interfamilial
issues.
Yeah, they had some, or intrafamilial, they had some
But then
problems.
I was also thinking, like, wouldn't you know if you were a Zygon?
Yes, but if you're a Zygon, you don't want them to know you're a Zygon.
But so when she regenerated, she was like, oh, I'm not a Zygon. Obviously, Granny 2 was not a Zygon because Granny 2 regenerated. right?
I mean, from what it sounded
Into
like,
Granny 3.
From what it sounded like Granny 5 was a conspiracy theorist, you know? Because the way the doctor said it was like, so she told me all this stuff about the soul tract. I mean, she also told me this thing about Granny 2 that was probably not true, but, you know, maybe she's right this time. You know what I mean? It seemed more like that than the actual truth.
Like, I believe I got the story from Granny. She's not a reliable source, but, you know,
I'm sticking with it.
She could be right. Mm-hmm. A broken clock is right twice a day.
Exactly.
Reverse the polarity or something. I died.
Yeah.
I was like, they're meant to be.
Yeah. And
never has a friendship ever worked better.
Right. And the doctor's like, oh, she's like, this is why I messes with you. Like, this is exactly why you're on my TARDIS.
What did I do before Yaz? Like I would have gotten there, but like you just made it so quick.
So, and Yaz knows nothing about the sonic screwdriver. She's just like, nope. Well, maybe if you do this thing, and it just
happens to be her go-to move.
Exactly. Thrown by a frog. Brilliant. I like how just like wide-eyed and like just that was some weird ass shit, and she's just like, this is great, I made a new friend in a whole universe. It's just like, girl,
never been friends with a universe before.
Exactly.
And then I think the sheep have moved on, probably off plotting. How close is the Woolly Rebellion?
It was like 200 years. It was like 193 years.
So how long do they plot?
I mean, I
never trust sheep.
No.
Can't trust them.
I kind of want them to, like, jump into the Woolly Rebellion now.
I know. But then we'd get more, like, CGI like the sheep. Or, I mean, like the frog. And then I don't know if I could do a whole episode.
True. Of, like, sheep talking. That's true.
Yeah.
Maybe, like, in one of the books or something, even though I don't actually read the books because I don't even read books that aren't based off of television shows. Can barely get through my book list. Can't add no Doctor Who to it right now. But yeah, it was interesting and like funny because everyone else is like, it's just a sheep, and she's like, oh, that's what you think. So yeah, that's
what they want you to think.
Exactly. They're out here plotting on y'all. Stay woke. Constant vigilance. Check out blackgirlscreate.org. Follow us on Twitter at WeBlackandNerds. Use the hashtag Tarbis for all Doctor Who conversations with us and friends and people who like Doctor Who and are of color.
Join our Slack where we have a channel dedicated to conversations about Doctor Who, and we have 2 people in our Slack who have been on the show. Ty Gooden just joined, and Nicole from Black TARDIS are in there. So like we have really good conversations, and Joy from Reality Bomb podcast. Like we have like professional Whovians in our Slack, and I'm really, 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 really stoked about it. If you can't tell,
just dust our shoulders off. They're out here.
Dust our shoulders off, but also, like, the conversations are lit.
They're so good.
They're so good.
Also, rate and review us on iTunes and wherever podcasts are found. We're also on Spotify now. So, yeah, do those things.
Yes. Tarbis is part of Hard Knock Media. We've joined the Nerds of Color podcast network, including the podcast Hard Knock Life, Southern Fried Asian, DC TV Classics, Ask Spy Girls, Desi Geek Girls, We're Not All Ninjas, and That Moment. You can check all of these podcasts out at hardknockmedia.com.
And thank you for listening. You can join us next week when we discuss the season finale.
Bullshit.
The Battle of Ranskoor Avkolos.
I just want to say that the preview for next week looks like it's also going to be on some scary bullshit, and stop it.
One that we're not prepared for, but like, you know.
We're not prepared because it shouldn't be the season finale, and I am owed 3 more episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. It is true.
But yes. All right. But yes. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
The black girls have the box.